The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another Keefer and Kurre. Thank goodness for my partner taking a long drink after just doing Need to Know. He needs to take a big old swallow. He just went about 40 minutes straight. Did you even take a breath on Need to Know today? I just heard you guys. I heard you
no.
go like that. I don't think you
I
finished up.
shared with you before. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth here because I'm not gloating. I'm not walking on air. I'm proud of Americans of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, whatever, making a definitive statement last Tuesday that they don't want this country to be messed with. We're going to stick to the principles that we were founded on, and we're going to make America great.
Well, and we pinned it right here. We told you what Vegas said about that thing. It was going to 2-1. Put all the money. I made a little money on Donald Trump. I mean, I looked at those numbers. I was like, minus 190. You kidding me? Vegas knows what they're doing. And, of course, she said it wouldn't even be close, and it wasn't. 7 swing states, 7-0 for Donald Trump. So you nailed
Tony,
that.
you know, I heard a Democrat actually say today, maybe we need to get off our ass and get out and talk to people, because when you go talk to just regular Americans, they're not misogynists, they're not racist, they're not biased. That this excuse that America's just not ready.
They also don't want to spend 3 hours talking about LGBTQ.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous. When I see Kamala Harris speak, I don't think, well, this is an Indian and Jamaican mixed woman married to a Jewish guy. I'm not voting for her. Yeah. That's absolutely ridiculous.
It really is.
That thought doesn't even enter until she said that the other day. That thought doesn't even enter my mind. What somebody looks like, what somebody believes in, who they love. I don't care. It's policy, and it's sticking to constitutional principles that's important to me.
Let's talk some football, some sports here.
Let's do it.
I'm going to throw some questions at you. I'm going to see if you can nail these here. There was an article that came out early this morning, and we're recording the show here on Monday on the Veterans Day, by the way. Our thoughts and prayers go to all of our veterans.
Oh, for sure. And I left that out. I need to know. Thank you for letting me do a make good. Every day, Tony, should be Veterans Day.
Absolutely.
We owe such a debt of gratitude to everybody who served this nation.
According to this particular sports writer who's got a pretty good following, he said this is the biggest problem in the National Football League right now. Do you want to take a stab at what he said? And then I'll tell you what it is.
Well, I
he
think
said this is the biggest problem in the National Football League right now.
The biggest problem in the NFL.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's that just like it's football, period. I think officials are too much a part of the outcome of games, but that's what I would say. As far as what a writer might think, I don't know. You're going to have to enlighten me.
So the first time since 1970 last night, a team threw 5 picks and was down 16 points and found a way to win. That'd be the Detroit Lions. Now, a lot of people say that the Detroit Lions certainly odds on to not only make the Super Bowl, but perhaps win the Super Bowl. They're winning games remarkably. They're not blowing anybody out, but I mean, they're just playing great, solid football in all 3 phases of the game, and they're getting it done. And against the Houston Texans, another team that a lot of people thought could make a run in the playoffs. His big issue is like this game is exactly what's wrong with the National Football League. How in the hell do you throw 5 picks? How in the hell are you down 16 points in the second half? How in the world do you lose a football game like that when you are supposed to be one of the better teams in the National Football League? So I went back to look at some of the biggest comebacks in sports history because we love comebacks. And I want to see how close you're going to be on some of these comebacks. What's the biggest comeback point-wise in the NBA?
In the NBA, I think it was in recent years. I think somebody was down in the 40s and came back and won. I don't remember the teams.
Let's go 1996. Utah Jazz up 70-34.
40 points.
They were up by 36 against the Denver Nuggets. Lost that game 107-103. And I had the Denver Nuggets in that game +3. And I remember some dude sitting next to me going, "Hey, dude, what side you at?" And I mean, I was scratching my eyeballs out. It was unbelievable. Okay, 36. NCAA basketball. What's the biggest comeback?
Oh boy, let's see. Nothing's really coming to mind. So go ahead and let me
That would
know.
be that'd be Drexel. They were down 34 to Delaware. So they got
I
36 and
follow
34.
Drexel religiously. So
There you go. NCAA college football. What's the biggest comeback in football history?
the biggest comeback in college football history. Let me think. I know I'll be familiar with it when you tell me.
It was a Big Ten game back in 2006. I will tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll remember it when you enlighten me, but I don't. I can't get it off the top of my head.
Northwestern Michigan. Northwestern up 38-3. With 9:54 left in the third quarter and lost 41-38. Then of course you got your NFL game. The big game I remember, of course, was the playoff game with the Houston Oilers. My good friend Aldo Greco was part of that game where they were down. Big time. They were down 32 points in that particular game, came back.
35-3 at the half,
And they lost that game 41-38. And then, of course, the biggest game in NFL history, 33 points, which was just back in 2022. That was the Vikings in that particular ball game. And they went overtime against the Colts and ended up beating them 41-30. 33 points. And I remember vividly watching that game because, in 2022, you think of these 33-point comebacks as like games that were in the 1910s or the 1915s or something like that. All right, real quick, Major League Baseball, biggest comeback and runs.
I think it was a game, maybe the Phillies and the Dodgers. I think they were down 11 runs. That's my guess.
You are darn close. There are 3 games that were actually 12 runs, and a game that you should know really well, the NHL, which really surprises me. But the biggest comeback in NHL history, and it's happened 10 times with this one goal scored. You know what it is?
No, I don't.
5 goals.
Wow.
You would think it'd be better than that, right, in the NHL? But we've had numerous teams down 7-2, 6-1, 5-0, and 10 times teams would come back being down 5-0 and have come back and won these games. I bring this up, first of all, because I think it's fascinating. I think it's a lot of fun because, you never want to turn the TV off. I always talk about the Red Zone. It's the best channel on television, period.
Oh, it is.
And it's like, in the NBA, we always used to say, man, just because your team's down 20 in the fourth quarter, don't turn it off. A lot of people thought the NBA was fixed because of it.
There's going to be a run.
Yeah, there's always going to be a run. No one's ever going to get up early by 25 and win by 25. It just doesn't happen. I'm watching this the Kansas game the other night. And Kansas gets up 19 in the first half. They're up by 15 at halftime. And next thing you know, they're losing the basketball game. I'm like, this is the number 1 team in all the land, right? They're up by 19 going into the locker room, up by 15 in the locker room. And somehow they're losing the basketball game in the second half. Now they came back to win that basketball game. So that's what I think makes sports great. But would you say, according to this writer, that this is something that the National Football League, at least he's using the NFL as an example here. Is this a problem? That's
what I was going to ask you. What is his postulation? Why is this a negative thing that the game's never over till it's over?
Because he says that if these 2 teams are 2 of the best teams in the National Football League, a team that throws 5 picks down 16 should never come back to win.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. If it's 16 is only 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions. That's not an insurmountable. I don't care how they got to that point. That tells me Houston, if they got 5 picks and only had a 16-point lead, they weren't maximizing their opportunities. I don't think that's an issue.
No, I don't either. And quite frankly, the more we can keep the eyeballs on the game, the better, right? I mean, how many times have you gone to bed? I remember being at a Cincinnati Reds. I went to a Cincinnati Reds game with a friend of mine. This was the Dunn days when they had Dunn, and they were down 9-2 going into the bottom of the ninth. And I said, the hell with it. Let's go.
Let's get out of here.
Let's get our beers. And my friend was like, okay. We're walking down fourth and Vine, and we had probably about 45-minute walk, and we're walking down. All of a sudden, I see fireworks. I'm like, oh, someone hit a dinger. Someone hit a dinger. And then I see fireworks again, like 5 minutes later, and I said, someone must have hit another dinger.
Wow.
So we start getting extra. So I get my phone, and it's like 9-4. I'm like, okay, it's 9-4. Well, by the time we had walked in the bar, all of a sudden there's fireworks going off everywhere, and that is, of course, to show that the Cincinnati Reds had actually come back and scored 8 runs in the bottom of the ninth inning, and I had tickets and I wasn't there for it. And I was pissed. I was just pissed off. They won 10-9 in that particular game. So that's one thing my boy, Santo, he never leaves a game early. It could be 41-0 with 3 seconds left. And I'm like, let's go to the car. Let's get out of here. You know, I'm that guy. Now I'm like the progressive guy. Let's find a good parking spot and get the hell out of here so we can beat the traffic. He's like, we never leave a game early. And so I agree with you in this particular case. In this particular case, I don't know maybe if this guy has got money on these games. I know the Red Zone has the witching hour, and it is, but seriously, it is amazing to me. And I was talking to Trent Dilfer about this on the Inferno, our podcast we do with UAB last week. He said it used to be when you were down 13, 14 points with 4 minutes left, it was over.
Yeah.
It was over. And that was his playing days in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he's like, there was no way you were coming back. Now you can't turn the TV off. He goes, what's changed? And I said, you tell me. I don't know. Are more teams playing not to lose? Is it because the rules have changed? Is it because the players are bigger, faster, stronger? What is it that makes these games so easily and susceptible to comebacks?
Well, Tony, to me, and I've been complaining about this, I almost used the B word. I've been complaining about this for years. I think the prevent you from winning defense is a huge factor when you've got a pretty good lead at the end of the game, because coaches making millions of dollars now are so afraid of being criticized for if your defense has worked pretty well the whole game and you've kept the other team contained, why in the last couple minutes, if you're up a couple of scores, why do you back 3 safeties, 35 yards off the line of scrimmage and give up chunks of yardage? Because in this modern day passing offense dominated game, if you hit 3 passes complete for 20 yards, you're right down there in scoring range. Now you're taking shots into the end zone, and you see it time after time after time. Then you give the ball back to the other team, and they're going to shut it down because they're going to be afraid to get criticized of throwing the ball. If it's not complete, it's going to stop the clock. It's going to give the other team time. So they just run it right up the middle and get nothing and punt it right back, and you're right back in the same circumstances. Coaches are so worried about getting beaten deep in that situation, they just let the other team come down into the scoring range, and they cash it in more oftentimes than not, because then they've got all the momentum.
The one thing that happens over and over and over and again, it'll happen again another 15 times this weekend, is when a team is up and all they got to do is get a first down. And they can run the clock out. They never get a first down. It's always a 3 and out. And the other team's they used all their timeouts. They've got 1:14 left, which sounds like it's nothing. And they got to go 83 yards. And I can guarantee you they're going to get within reach. They're going to get within 20 yards.
Because they give them 20 yards of play.
They do, because that prevent defense. I still don't understand why you run the ball 3. I know you don't want to turn the ball over, but in this day of where a pass is almost the same as a run, I mean, you can do flip passes, you can do screen passes, you can do passes that are safer than runs. Why not do those quick little flips? I mean, it should not be a problem. It should not be a problem. Much like we have a 2-point play. Everyone's got the 2-point, the rub on the end line in order to get which is, obviously pass interference, but no one calls it the rub play, and it's almost good every single time. There should be a play where you can get a first down on 3 plays. I don't care where it's at. You should be able to get 3. You should be able to get a first down on that works almost every time.
Yeah. I mean, is it absolutely written in stone? Okay, if you're going to run the ball, why do you try to the whole concept too? How many 4th and 1s do you see get stopped these days? It's ridiculous that teams just insist on, and there's still this kind of macho, stupid crap in coaches' heads that, well, if we can't get a half a yard here, then we don't deserve to get the first down. It's this macho kind of thing. The players are so big and so immovable. So on both the fronts, you've got everybody's stacked in on the line. What's happened to the quarterback? Play action there and just rolling around the end. There's nobody there on those short yardage situations. You've got to have a quarterback that has a little bit of mobility, because defense does not account for a quarterback. So you're going to run the ball straight up the middle. You've got your 5 or 6 guys up front with a couple tight ends. That's probably almost 300 pounds a man or more. So that's 2,000 pounds against everybody on the defense up in there. So, I mean, you're basically trying to run through a human brick wall. There's no place to go. You can't, let's knock them off the ball. Well, you know what the defense does up front? They go low and cut the offensive linemen down so the linebackers and the other guys can fill the holes and stuff those plays. I'd like to see the percentage of 4th and 1 calls. I bet they're pretty slanted. I'm sure that the offense gets it more often than they don't, but I bet the defense stops them 30 or 40% of the time.
I always think to myself, as the other side, do I want this team going for it? And normally that means no, because I know they're probably going to get it on a 4th and 1. I'd rather them kick the field goal. You brought something up a couple weeks ago, and I want to address this real quick, about some type of conspiracy going on with the officials, and I thought you were hooey, and obviously I'm not a conspiracy kind of guy, because I think over the course of time things kind of seem to even out a little bit. I did see something at the end of my Bengals game this past Thursday night against the Baltimore. Not only was Gesicki held coming across the middle on a pass play where the Bengals were trying to win the game outright with 38 seconds left. I'm not sure why they did it, because they could have gone. It could have kicked an extra point, tied the ball game. And of course, the thought process is there, Baltimore had time to go down and get their own 3 points. But even if they end up getting the 2-point conversion, Baltimore still could have gone down there and kicked a field goal.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you saw it, but one of the Baltimore Ravens defenders, I forget his name, actually raked across Joe Burrow's face mask enough that it pulled his head down.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, it was. And there's a ref back there. For people who don't know, there's a ref back there. His whole job is to watch the quarterback.
Yep,
that's it. Watch the quarterback. Not only that, but of course, right before that, Marlon Humphreys it was a late call or late hit that they didn't call. And listen, I know it was in slow motion, and I know it was on Bengals feed, so I know they're gonna slant that way. I watched it regular speed. He was at least 2.5 steps out way through the football, and so it should have been called there too. I'm starting to think, and then based on what you and I discussed before we actually started these plays, some of the bad calls. I saw the Commanders call yesterday. I don't know where that 4th down play was. And listen, I realize they shouldn't have put themselves in that position, but that sure as hell looked like the ball hit the yellow line, and the yellow line was the first down call because they measured it.
Oh yeah,
they were still a half a yard short. I don't know. I realize that if you're going to try to overturn a call, chances are you're never going to get one of those overturned where you ball spots, because that's the one thing that refs still have. It's kind of like strike zones in Major League Baseball. We'll never be able to overturn strike calls because it's almost a subjective situation. These guys are coming in. How often do we see the outside linesman and the inside linesman running in, and they're about a half yard short? They're a half yard off.
Exactly. And
so you just
and now you've even started to hear commentators saying, well, if the guy coming in from the far side is marking the ball, it's going to be a first down. The other guy, it's not going to be. Tony, I'm going to use the word this. I've been bitching about this for years. We have so much technology. The world has changed, and it's still 1930 and how we spot the ball, which is probably the most fundamental thing you have to do properly in a game, because in a game that you have to get enough real estate to gain a first down and another set of downs to keep the football, when they mark the ball incorrectly, because the task you're asking these guys to do, waddle in from the far side with their eagle eye on the spot where they think the ball was stopped, and then they have to dodge again the mass of humanity, alter their courses they're trying to run in. If everybody backed off and they could run straight to the spot, but they get misdirected, and by the time they get there, they stick their foot in the ground. That's how we decide where the ball is. We have technology, and I didn't know this. My son just enlightened me, the sports editor at the Las Vegas Sun, Case Keefer. In this preseason in the NFL, I didn't know they were doing this. They actually put chips in the football. Is something I've been calling for years, and it's going to be measured potentially. I guess they had some bugs and still are working it out, but that's the way we got to go. We've got to get away from the two little fat guys with the poles with a chain that's 10 yards coming out there and stretching it out. I mean, it's 1930. This is almost 2030. It's absolutely absurd. And maybe the chip technology in the football will give you an exact place where the computer will tell you exactly where to spot the football, where progress was stopped, and maybe we can finally move on away from this absurdity. You mentioned conspiracies. I didn't really have a conspiracy allegation that they're trying to fix games. My complaint is that I think officials are basically overloaded. They're given so many directives of things to look for and things to call by league offices and bureaucrats that are making these decisions, that the officials have infused themselves now to the point in the game where they're every bit as important to the outcome as the players. And that's what disturbs me, because especially in college football, where they're not even professional officials, a lot of them are just promoted high school guys. You get so many calls in college games that are just completely missed, which calls to the ineptitude. Or you can always tell what the point of emphasis that week is, because they'll start throwing flags for things you haven't seen anybody get called for before. So the league office is telling, okay, you better start calling this because this is a rule, or you're under contract. We're not going to use you anymore.
Yeah, so I saw that this past week. I saw 3 leverage calls.
Yeah, leverage.
I was like, it's like, I mean,
they haven't called that in any game all year.
You can call leverage on every play. And the guy just got his hand on his back and he called leverage. And I mean, that's a huge call. And I'm like, you kidding me? I saw 3 leverage plays this weekend. I was like, I've never heard of leverage before.
And you can't be inconsistent. I got furious in the Alabama-Tennessee game, and I didn't have a dog in that hunt. I root for Alabama because I'm here, but I think it was egregious on both sides. I said that next morning because they threw 26 flags in that game. Yep. Nobody pays to see them running around throwing laundry on the field. But I made the point, there were at least 3 calls of hands to the face where a guy doesn't grasp the face mask. He just brushes it maybe on the way by, or if you do a standard move by a defender, a swim move where you try and thrust your one hand over the back of the defender and kind of wedge your way around them. Mm-hmm. If you happen to brush their face back with the back of their hand. But my complaint there was you could haul off and just slug a guy in the side of the head, and it's the same foul as barely touching the guy's helmet. It's ridiculous. You've got to put some interpretive ability for these officials. We talked about before the show here, BYU and Utah. Utah sacked the BYU quarterback twice in the end zone. The first one was canceled because supposedly a timeout was signaled before the play, but the officials let the play commence and the fans celebrated. Then on 4th down, when they got a redo, they sacked him again in about the same manner, but all the way across the field after the celebration ensued, the announcer goes, oh, wait a minute, there is a flag down in the secondary 30 yards away from the play where the quarterback didn't have 5 seconds to throw the ball. There's no way he's going to throw across his body all the way across the field where the flag was. They called defensive holding and gave BYU a new set of downs, which they cashed in with the winning field goal later on down the field. So there's too much influence. There's too much determination of the outcome by the people on the field that aren't even players.
To further your point too on the timeouts, a referee is not there in the game to stand next to the head coach to call a timeout for him. This crap where these coaches are sitting there waiting for the guy to get ready to kick the winning field goal, and they're like, timeout right before. I hate these that's not their job. The job is not to stand next to the guy and go, okay, when it gets to 3 seconds, I'm going to call timeout. I don't care. Then come find my ass. I've got a job to do.
How many times is the kick in the air when they say, oh, no, they called timeout? There's got to be.
Because the ref wasn't watching the play, which is what he's supposed to be doing. And so he's like, well, he called a timeout. I couldn't tell if the ball was in the air or not. He wasn't even looking at the kicker. He was looking at the coach to make sure he didn't give him the tee first.
But you make a great point. The coach stands right in an official on the sideline's ear, and in that 4th down play, the snap was made. Every other official, all the players were engaged, but the one guy chumming up with the coach on the sideline comes sprinting down the field and say, I gave him a timeout before the play. Bullshit. That's just ridiculous. And people spend so much money and devote so much of their time and attention and loyalty to these games, and to have a non-player determine the outcome week after week after week. Tony, somebody's got to do something. They're ruining the game. They're killing the golden goose.
We're trying to fix this 1 week at a time here on the Keefer and Kurre Show. Hey, check us out on television, ABC 3340. We're on every single week from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. Partner, I cannot believe that we're getting into week 12 of college football.
It goes so fast.
It's amazing. And of course, the National Football League into week 11. We still have about 6-7 more weeks to go there, but it's just amazing how fast the season's gone by. But the good news is we do have bowl games, and of course, we have CFP, and that'll go all the way through the 1st of January. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to have another good 6-7
And that's
weeks.
a mess. That's a whole nother subject.
That is going to be a lot of fun this year, too. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that all bellies out, too.
Because speaking of ineptitude, the committee that goes to Grapevine, Texas on Thursday nights, mind you, and hangs around in hotel suites and these luxury viewing places with all the food, all the drinks they can consume, and then they meet for 20 minutes and decide what I mean, you talk about excess. If I'm in charge of the world, the first thing it goes is the playoff committee. That's why we have a thing called Zoom.
Yeah, there you go.
Why do we fly these sacred cows to Dallas every weekend for 7 straight weeks so they can eat, drink, and be merry and come up with a bad list of
They
teams?
need to read body language, Kip. It's body language. They have to see body language. They understand where they're going. And then, of course, if your team's in, I'm going to recuse myself. I'll go walk around the lobby for 30 minutes, which is stupid as shit as well.
BS.
Yeah, exactly. K4wins.com. K4wins.com is our website. We do a show together, you and I, along with Kai Gregory. And of course, your son has been lights out. By the way, he loved South Carolina on our show this past week, and I did not play it. I totally forgot about it. He said, listen, Kate, he's like, I don't care. South Carolina is the best play I've had all year long. And I totally missed kickoff on that. I was kicking myself for it. But he's been absolutely on fire. And of course, his hockey's really, really good too. Give me your website for all of your stuff, because you're on almost everything. What's your site again?
KQShows.com. You can get at your fingertips access to anything and everything, including all my TKR shows, my shows on WJOX 94.5, and certainly it's a resource that you can. KQShows.com. It's our landing page where we have everything that we've done easily accessible.
Fantastic. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk this week.
All right, Tony. Take care.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.